I'm Lauren with the Women's MTB Network, and welcome to our long-term review of the Revel Ranger. A huge shout out to the Revel crew for sending us the Ranger XO build. I've been demoing this bike for the last 6 months, and we couldn't be more appreciative of Revel for giving us the opportunity. We started the first of our many review series that we're gonna do with a rivalry against Revel and Santa Cruz. We really wanted to compare the Revel Ranger with my Santa Cruz Tallboy. However, I have realized that it's difficult to compare kind of apples for apples because it's not the same bike. It would have been, I think, better had I been riding a Santa Cruz Blur, and that would have been a more fair type of comparison against the Ranger. But I can at least tell you guys a little bit about the most noticeable differences that I saw between both bikes. I've been riding this bike for about 6 months. I've been able to ride it in our local Southern California trails, and we took it to Arizona and rode it in Arizona Tech. I will say my first impressions, the bike's a quick bike. By quick, I mean it is incredibly maneuverable, and I think that's because it's shorter. It's a shorter overall bike, and Mia's gonna go into more detail about all that geometry numbers later in the video. That was the first noticeable difference between that bike. If you look up the Revel Ranger on their website, they describe it as being one of the most nimble bikes, and I completely agree with that. And you can get around tight switchbacks, you can get around some tight tech turns, and that's the biggest difference I saw between the Ranger and my Santa Cruz Tallboy. The terrain that we ride in Southern California is generally classified as cross country. It's a lot of ups, but some really fun downs as well. I'm a climber, I really like climbing, which is why we went for the Revel Ranger as part of our first review series. The Ranger is a very efficient climber. I can tell in their CBF suspension, it feels stiffer, and so the climbing is more efficient, where you don't have to lock out your shock to get that efficiency like you would on some other bikes. And I also feel it in the, I think the chainstay is shorter. Is it? Mm-hmm. We should keep that in there. Is it? The chainstay is shorter. That again adds to the efficiency of the bike, which you can really, really feel. In terms of the nimbleness that I was talking about before, it is so quick in maneuvering. And that kind of threw me for a loop when I was first riding it locally on some of the downhills, because I was used to my Santa Cruz Tallboy being a little bit more stable and being able to, you kind of have to throw your weight into it a little bit to get it to really move around. That's not a bad thing, but the Ranger is the exact opposite. You can be really, really light in your movements and it's gonna react. So that took me a little bit of time to get used to, but when I got used to it, I was like, oh, I see it now. While it was really fun riding the Ranger in Southern California, when we took it to Sedona, kind of a light bulb switch sort of went off for me when I was riding it in the Sedona Tech, and my first impression was, this is where the bike wants to ride. That's not the only terrain that this bike can ride in, so don't get me wrong. But I feel like this bike thrives in that tech environment. And I think that's for 2 reasons. It's shorter wheelbase, so it's very quick, it's very lively. You can get around obstacles a lot easier, and also because it's so efficient at climbing. So I think Sedona, I had so much fun with the Revel Ranger. It was an absolute blast to ride in Sedona. Who is this bike for? The bike is gonna be for somebody who wants a cross-country type bike. The bike itself is incredibly light in general in terms of weight. It's gonna be an efficient climber. It's not gonna be sort of like your all-around bike that you could take and do some really steep downs or even like some light bike park type stuff. That's not what this bike is made for. But if you're somebody who's really looking into getting into the cross-country aspect or just like technical climbing, I think you're gonna be really, really happy with this bike.
The Revel Ranger V2 medium frame comes in at just under 25 pounds. It's a full 29er bike, both front and rear, and it has 115 mil of travel in the back and 120 mil of travel in the front, with a standover height of 669 and a wheelbase of 1170. It's got a reach of 453 mils and a head tube angle of 67.5, making this a cross-country beast for both tech climbs and tech descents.
First off, the bike comes with the SRAM XO wireless drivetrain. We ended up changing these tires and we put the Versus all-mountain tire front and rear. It was a little bit more traction for what we were riding in Southern California and in Arizona. The wheel set, Revel uses their own wheel set, which is a fusion fiber recycled material. It's very lightweight, but also very strong. The hubs are the i9 Trail 11 hubs. For shocks, Revel uses the Rock shocks for front and rear, with 120 mil of travel in the front and 115 mil of travel in the back. A true cross-country bike through and through. It has a Crank Brothers Highline dropper post and a Crank Brothers dropper lever. The bike comes with SRAM level SLV brakes. For those of you that don't know and are new to Revel like I am, Revel uses the Canfield or CBF suspension system, which is a little different than most mountain bikes. To be quite honest, it's incredibly complicated, and Mia is gonna go into further detail later in this video.
Revel uses the Canfield Balance Formula as their suspension platform, or CBF. It is the most efficient yet active pedaling platform possible. The CBF design makes the positive uphill and downhill performance of the Ranger shine. It creates a stable pedaling platform, controlled under braking, and a bottomless feel keeps the Ranger from hardly feeling outgunned. In layman's terms, this means it pedals well through the travel and doesn't bob. Its versatile design makes for more traction, better pedal performance throughout the entire range of travel. The CBF suspension is like nothing we've ever demoed before. We highly recommend you going to your local retailer and finding a bike for you to demo out to see what this gorgeous suspension is all about.
Definitely some fun, steep little sections over here, but definitely a fun trail that you can lap. And we're almost to the end.
So let us know if you have any questions or comment below. Be sure to subscribe and please follow us on Instagram.